Tactical Team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team. And today we have a viewer question from Victor Eriksson, the Vampire Viking. And his question is, hey Malorian, in a synergy army like Empire, how many characters should you really be taking? Because, there's a whole spectrum from my general in the BSB to the other side where I'm just taking a load of points in characters. And where's the right spot to be? And I thought that was a really good question because it's one I see a lot of people kind of mess up all the time and get wrong in their armies. The easiest way to try and introduce into this is probably the whole relationship of how the Warrior Priest and the Hurricanum goes. Because even though he's talking about support characters, Empire also has the Luminarch and the Hurricanum, which is also something to keep in mind. And with things like the Warrior Priest and the Hurricanum, which both affect 2-hit, it's a very good comparison and a way to look into it. Now, looking at the Warrior Priest, you throw him in a unit and he gives you hatred. And it's a pretty easy thing, right? Basically what's going to give you is in the first round of combat, whereas normally your unit's going to be hitting half the time, now because you're re-rolling those misses, you'll be hitting 75% of the time. So for most hordes, that'll be 30 attacks, which means an extra 7.5 hits. Okay, not too bad. If you're looking at the Hurricanum, it gives you +1 a hit. Again, the math is really easy. There's 38 guys in there, 30 attacks. Divide that by 6, that's an extra 5 hits. It's every single turn, but it's an extra 5 hits as opposed to the 7.5 from the other one. So depending right there whether you're deciding to go for a real push for winning first round or for a really long grind, you could say you want to go with one support or the other. Hell, you could say, you know what, I'm going to go with both. Now, where you'd like to see some of the synergy really be like going exponential, and the more you take of it, the better it is, it actually is not like that here. Because if you already have the Hurricanum there, normally if you added a Warrior Priest, normally it would be an extra 25%. The way it works out the math now, it's an extra 22%. Little bit worse, but something to keep in mind. That all of a sudden, you're not getting that same bonus, 7.5 hits for the whatever 100 points. Now it's going to be that little bit less. And this is where you have to really start asking yourself, how much is that worth to me overall, for the points I'm putting into it? For comparison from my armies, from the Orcs and Goblins, well, for the Savage Orc Biggins, I'm going to be putting extra choppas in all of those. And that's going to be 2 points a model, so over a big horde with 40 guys, that's 80 points. I'm paying 80 points to get an extra 10 attacks, which are weapon skill 4, strength 5. Pretty damn good. Meanwhile, with the Hurricanum and the Warrior Priest, you're paying we're paying more points to get fewer, worse attacks. And so when you really start looking at that, it's like, wow, is it really worth it? And it's one of these things, too, where, it's really hard to say that because it really depends on your list. The first thing to talk about is the way that you play your list to begin with. If you're a guy that wants to be going out there and you're going to be taking lots of combat blocks and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to grind you down, well, then, yeah, you might want to have those Warrior Priests and stuff in there because it's kind of important that you actually win. If that's your strategy is to win through combat, you might want to have all the chips in your deck so that you can win through combat. Meanwhile, if you're a guy where, I got the light cancel, I got all the war machines, I have stuff that's going to be baiting you all the time to double flee, and then really all these guys here, they're just going to be going and tying you up the last couple of turns just to stop you from getting any points. Well, then don't get any Warrior Priests and Hurricanums because they're not doing anything for you. Now, with that there too, you have to also kind of see how many points am I actually putting in to be getting this effect. And that can be even getting worse when you look at the whole army. Like I said, if we're looking at just one unit, it's like, okay, well this Warrior Priest, I'm adding about 100 points to get those extra 7.5 attacks. Okay, whatever. Plus he also has his own combat abilities himself, right? Maybe I gave him a great weapon, who knows. Well, when you take that and expand it across the whole army, that could really add up to a lot. Let's say you run, 2 hordes of halberdiers and a horde of great swords, and so with that, you're going to have 3 warrior priests. They're going to have some, combat gear on them, and then 2 hurricanums. Well, all of a sudden you add this up when we're looking at 500 points or more. And so for that same 500 points, am I really getting what I need there? Or would it be better to put those 500 points into something else, like war machines, or a big unit of demigriffs, or something else like this, right? Like 500 points is a lot of points. That's a horde of black orcs. I know Empire can't get black orcs, but, I'm sure if I give them the option, hey, do you want to trade those 3 warrior priests and 2 hurricanums for this horde of black orcs? I think they'd be all over it. Now, another part with this too is if you do it in the way where, no, I want to take those 3 warrior priests and 2 hurricanums because I'm a combat army and I need that combat power. You also have to realize that that is also a weakness in your army because it's a lot of points tied up in very few wounds. Now, I've seen this a lot from my own playing with my Night Goblins, and in the front of my units I'd have a bunch of Night Goblin big bosses, and you know what? Normally they kick butt. Other times I get in there and it's just not a good matchup, and all my opponent has to do is kill, 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 kill. Alright, I've killed 6 of your characters, I'm now up 200 points. You better start doing something special because I'm winning right now. And that same thing can happen to Empire. They go in, they kill off maybe your Hurricanum and stuff with shooting so that you're down and losing before combat even happens. And then once combat starts, if it's not a thing where it's going to be done right away, it's like, well, I just killed your warrior priest. Sure, he wasn't giving you any more benefit anyway, but now, until this combat's resolved, I'm still up a whole bunch of points. And, if a game ends, guess what? I win. And that's a definite real risk. Now, listening to all this, I've really been leaning on the character light. And I really do think that's a really smarter spot to be just because of that risk. You can really get a lot of combat potential from putting all that synergy in, but at the same time, it can really bite you in the butt, when things go the other way. And now, fair enough, you might have other things in your army, and maybe the cannons won't be going after your hurricanums because they'll be going after the steam tank or whatever else the build is. But you have to realize that whenever you have a big chunk of points and very few wounds, that's a risk. However, at the same time, this is not cut and dry because it can be a thing where, okay, I put all my points into lots and lots of swordsmen. Yes, I got so many swordsmen. I got swordsmen for days. Well, you're just not going to win because you'll march up, they'll fight you, and they'll just beat you. It's like the guys that try making like a zombie horde. And it's like, haha, all I have is zombies. And it's like, well, you'll never win a fight ever. So there's a point here where those points in synergy and in support will actually win you fights, which will win you points, which it can win you the game. And at that point, 500 points to win the game? Yeah, sure, whatever, right? So it really is a tough spot to say where that cutoff is, but I'd say that what you should normally do is whenever you make a list, or this is also something you can do after the fact, right? Take your list from your last tournament and say, okay, from this, what is support? Support's anything that's supporting another big block. This could even be something like a chariot, right? If it's not a chariot, it's going to be going off and fighting on itself. It's going to be supporting this block. Circle it. That's a support. Now start saying, what exactly does this give me? Is it something easy math-wise, like +5 attacks? Or is it plus this many attacks, plus leadership, plus these other attacks from him himself? Whatever it is, write those benefits down. And then compare that to the points. And ask yourself, is that worth it? Look overall for your whole list and say, out of my whole list, how many points am I spending on support? And it could be to the point, too, where all these things, this support worth it, this support worth it, this support worth it, this support worth it. But man, if I look overall, I'm spending so many points on support, and that's because I'm trying to do everything at the same time. If I really went down and tried to focus on just like a few different phases on the game, I could be a lot stronger overall. So that's a very good practice to do, and something very important overall, just to make your list that much stronger And, you know, man, sometimes you see people where they just take, like, here's my 10 characters. And he's going to ask you, like, really? Do you know how many points you're spending on that? So make sure you're doing the right thing with your points. I showed you how to kind of go over it. And, hey, I hope it helps you win. Catch you later. Bye.